All right, once again, welcome everybody. Without any more delay, I am going to get started here. So good morning and good afternoon. Thank you all for being here and taking time out of your day to join us. Obviously, you're here because you have some sort of interest in CCAs, or you've been modeling projects with them and want some more clarification on what they are and how they work. So we're going to be covering all of that plus more within the next 60 minutes. My name's Tracy and I'm our marketing manager here at Energy Toolbase. I just wanted to give you guys a excuse me, a really quick look at exactly what we're going to be covering. As you know, CCAs is a pretty broad topic and there's a lot to them. So we thoughtfully put together this agenda in hopes that these are the main points to hit on to get people's questions answered. With the fact that many of you are solar developers, we are going to try and tailor this to give you all the necessary information you need to go on and comprehend and successfully start modeling on CCAs, which you probably have or you likely will come across in the near future. So if you have any questions, just chat them into the chat box and we will try to get to as many as we can at the end of the webinar. We're also going to be recording it and sending it out after for you to reference or pass along to anybody who might be interested as well. So I do want to introduce the great group of panelists we have on with us. Jory is one of our senior utility rates analysts here at Energy Toolbase. She's got a ton of experience in updating and maintaining CCAs within our platform, and she interacts with a lot of our users who have questions about CCAs or are using them in Energy Toolbase. And most of you who are currently users probably know our Vice President of Sales, Scott D'Ambrosio. He is going to be going over the NEM rules for some of the more popular CCAs and looking at CCAs within Energy Toolbase. And we are also joined by Woody Hastings. Woody is an energy program manager for the Center for Climate Protection, a California nonprofit organization based in Sonoma County. Woody is an energy and environmental policy analyst, strategic planner, and community organizer with more than 3 decades of experience. Other than all of that, he specializes in community choice energy and actually led the charge in establishing Sonoma Clean Power, which is the second CCA program in California. So CCAs, like I mentioned, are becoming more and more common, especially throughout California, and Energy Toolbase is one of the only tools out there that can accurately model them. So there are 19 programs in the state as of today, and many of our users are modeling their solar and storage projects with these programs pretty regularly, and not just in California, but across the US as well. Jory is going to talk a little bit more about this, but we do maintain CCAs within the rates database. Along with those, we have more than 50,000 rates in all 50 states and internationally, which really allows our users to have as much accuracy and transparency in their projects. While we are really well versed in this topic, we do want to bring in an expert on it with a ton of knowledge and experience. So with that, I am going to pass things over to Woody to start us off.
Well, thank you very much, Tracy, and good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Again, my name is Woody Hastings, Energy Program Manager for the Center for Climate Protection. I've been asked to talk a bit about community choice energy, where it's at, how it fits into the electricity puzzle. And so a lot of what I'll be talking about today is available information at our dedicated website for community choice related news and information, cleanpowerexchange.org. So Clean Power Exchange is a program of the Center for Climate Protection that focuses on community choice. Next slide. So what I'll go through today is just a little more of an intro about who we are and how we're involved, how we became involved, what our experience is, what community choice aggregation is, why communities, cities and counties pursue community choice, a couple of the governance models, where it's happening, what some of the results have been, and what is in the crystal ball. So you can go to the next slide. So the Center for Climate Protection, as Tracy mentioned, California nonprofit organization founded in 2001 with a mission to reduce greenhouse gas emissions everywhere. We started out in Sonoma County, but we're working statewide now. And we look for policies and programs that reduce greenhouse gases and ideally also have co-benefits for communities, but that are also replicable. And community choice really fit that model very well. When we first identified it in 2005, when it became available to cities and counties as we call it the single most powerful tool available to cities and counties to rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we did pursue establishing a community choice agency here in Sonoma County, and I was hired in 2010 to help with that effort. And between 2010 and 2014, that campaign, we undertook that campaign, and Sonoma Clean Power launched in 2014. And since roughly 2014, we have been, sort of taking the show on the road and exercising that replicability with our Clean Power Exchange program. Since 2016, we launched Clean Power Exchange, but we've been working since 2014 on advancing community choice statewide. Next slide. So what is community choice energy? It's a relatively recent phenomenon, so even a lot of people in the energy sector are not familiar with it. They are local not-for-profit agencies that procure and have the statutory authority to own their own assets, generate their own electricity for businesses and residents. In California, it was enabled by a state law enacted in 2002. And affirmed in 2012 with a law that strengthened community choice and established an investor-owned utility code of conduct relative to community choice agencies, as there was a lot of obstruction. Even though the original law instructed IOUs to cooperate fully, that didn't happen. So in 2012, strengthening law was passed. It is a collaboration with the IOUs, and so I got PG&E there. That's in our neck of the woods. But the three main IOUs in California continue to manage the delivery. They also continue to do the metering and the billing. And the community choice agency is solely responsible for the procurement side, the generation side of the equation. Powerfully, community choice is the default service in its territory. So when they launch, there's an automatic enrollment. Folks can always opt out, but this avoids the need for any kind of multi-million-dollar marketing campaign to get a single-digit participation rate. And all the community choice agencies are experiencing very high retention, so the majority of folks end up being community choice customers in that service territory. You can go to the next slide. So this is just a little bit of a graphic depiction of the simplest form, really community choice on the left there, responsible for buying and constructing electricity supply. And then the delivery utility continues to do the transmission and distribution, and the customers, they become customers because they now have a choice. You can ditch that ratepayer term because they are not captive ratepayers, they're customers, and they can choose to be a bundled customer with the utility or a community choice customer. You can go to the next slide. So just for those of you, and I understand the slides will be made available, so these are hyperlinks to the rulemaking that occurred back after the law was passed in 2002. There was a 2-year period of rulemaking at the California Public Utilities Commission. And so for those of you who really want to drill down and know all the details of how community choice works, this is probably about 20 slides worth of stuff packed into these URLs here. So that's all I really wanted to say on this one. That's where you can find that information. You can go to the next slide. This was what I was talking about in the original law, and this is sort of an FAQ. It's like, well, you start talking to people about community choice, and the question is, well, how do the IOUs feel about that? The original law did instruct them to cooperate fully. Daily collaboration, and now we've got 19 operational agencies in the state of California, in all major IOU, SDG&E, Edison, and PG&E, and it's a daily collaboration. So things are sort of evolving, and there's a lot more sort of comfort and collaboration with the community choice agencies. So there is that, and they are also partnering on projects and programs. So things are getting interesting. You can go to the next slide. Some of the requirements in that original law: a city or county must pass an ordinance to initiate a community choice agency. It doesn't take a vote of the electorate in a city or county. It's a vote of the city council or the county board of supervisors. They are required to provide service to all of their customers, no picking and choosing. They must allow customers to opt out and become bundled customers with the IOU if they wish. They must file an implementation plan to the Public Utilities Commission prior to launching service. They are charged an exit fee, which is a fee designed to make sure that the folks that remain bundled customers are not paying any costs that should be borne by the departing customers. So it's a fee that is typically folded into the rates that are charged to community choice customers, and the rates that they ultimately pay are still at par with or somewhat at a discount to the utility rate. And then there are several state mandates like the Renewable Portfolio Standard and integrated resource plans and resource adequacy that community choice agencies must abide by. You can go to the next slide. And so why do cities and counties pursue community choice? There's quite a number of reasons why they might want to do so. Local control is a big issue for a lot. Enabling consumer choice, environmental goals. Here in Sonoma County, greenhouse gas reductions was a big deal. There are potential local economic benefits and jobs if you really focus in on local energy resource development. The net revenues from community choice programs can be used for a wide variety of innovative programs. So, any number of reasons. And, with the wildfires we've had here in Sonoma County and elsewhere in California, resilience is becoming a big issue, and building capacity in a given community for decision-making over energy-related issues has become a higher priority for a lot of the cities and counties that we interact with. Go to the next slide. So yeah, I mentioned that there's two main governance models, which is single jurisdiction, where a single city or a county might want to pursue their own community choice agency and not in partnership with any other jurisdiction. So we've got about a half a dozen examples of those in California. San Francisco has its own. Apple Valley in San Bernardino County has its own, and the city of San Jose. They're surrounded by Silicon Valley Clean Energy, but they went their own route, and so they've got their own single city community choice agency. Next slide. And so the other model is joint powers, where jurisdictions join together. The very first community choice agency in California was MCE. That stands for Marin Clean Energy. They launched in 2010. Sonoma Clean Power, and that's a JPA of actually now quite a number of jurisdictions in Marin and Contra Costa, Solano, Napa. So a number of counties and cities have joined that one. Sonoma Clean Power is Sonoma County and actually now Mendocino County, the 8 eligible cities in our county, and then down the line there you can see a number of others, and there are more. So next slide. And so our friends at Lean Energy US are working on expanding the community choice model nationwide. You can see that there are 8 states. This is a graphic from Lean Energy US. 8 states that currently have community choice law. It started in Massachusetts. and came to California in 2002. There's legislation pending in 4 states, and Lean Energy is working to see it emerge in other states. So you can move to the next slide. In California, this is a screenshot of our interactive map that depicts community choice status in all 58 counties and all 482 cities in the state. So, if this were live, you can click into these counties and it pulls up each city, and you can see what the status is for each city. So the green on this map is where the county itself has a live operational community choice program, and then the next level down is the crosshatch, yellow and green, where the county itself, it doesn't have community choice, but there are cities within that county that are operational, and then all the other colors are varying stages of evaluation of community choice. And so we do list on that map page. I'll just mention that we do list all the operational agencies, and they're all hyperlinked if you go to that cleanpowerexchange.org and go to the map. It's pretty evident. Go ahead, next slide. So results, a couple of slides on results, and I think I'm getting close to the end here. So in 2018, the estimate is about $90 million in direct bill savings for customers in community choice. Next slide. You can go to the next slide. This is this chart. Matrix is a little bit dated. Hasn't been updated since January, I think, so there's a lot more that's happened since then. Things are changing all the time, but I included it just to give you a sense of the range of programs that are that are available by community choice agencies, and there is a lot of storage and solar and storage, of course, with community choice, all the way from the very small scale individual residential up to utility scale solar and storage. So this is something you can peruse maybe when you like. You can go to the next slide. And so this is a chart that just gives a little bit of the information about the sizes of the community choice agencies, customer accounts, and load. I think the thing to look at okay, there it is. There was something blocking the bottom of the chart for me, but I see it now. The 4th column over at the bottom, one of the big goals for us with community choice is ramping up, accelerating deployment of renewables, and reducing greenhouse gases. So you can see that that 43% is the aggregate renewable portfolio standard point that the community choice agencies are at. 10 ahead of the 2020 mandate by 10 points. So lots of good things going on with all of these agencies, and that's one of them. You can go to the next slide. So just in terms of some of the deployments that have happened, over 1,300 megawatts of new solar and 740 megawatts of new wind, a small amount of biogas generation, and 360 megawatt hours of new storage. And these numbers are going up all the time. Next slide. And this is a chart from CalCCA, the California Community Choice Association, that just depicts where some of this deployment is happening. And so, yeah, CalCCA has started to put together collective data and information like this. It's been very helpful. So they'll be updating this chart soon. This was from 2018, so looking forward to seeing the 2019 map that will include a lot of new projects. Next slide. The expectation between now and 2030 is that the lion's share of procurement is going to be in the hands of community choice agencies. So you can see there the CCAs in the middle expected to be doing the bulk of that procurement. Next slide. And I think this is my last one, just to say that I don't show the 19 operational here, but there are quite a number that are in the process of emerging and are likely to launch in 2020 and 2021. And then there's several others on the right there that are in some process of evaluating community choice and may get the ball rolling on an implementation plan soon. So I think with that, I will conclude. I think that's my last slide, and pass it off to, I believe it's Jory.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could join in on today's CCA webinar. My name is Jory Rotman. I am a senior rate analyst at Energy Toolbase, located out of our Stewart office in Florida. We've received a lot of questions recently surrounding CCAs, so we are really excited to finally be able to present this webinar to you today. Before I begin, I want to thank you, Woody, with the Center for Climate for Protection, for being a panelist today, and all the info you have provided has been great. In this section, I'm now going to be discussing Energy Toolbase and how our database handles and maintains the community choice aggregation programs for our customers. Also, since there are some key points to pay attention to with the structures of CCA rates and the additional charges from the main utilities, I will be going over a few examples of our current rates. So let's begin by going over the overview of Energy Toolbase and CCAs. As you can see here, we maintain quite a bit of the CCAs, and at the moment it is 16 out of the 19 total programs for the investor-owned utilities in California. This breaks down to 5 CCA programs for SCE and 11 CCA programs for PG&E, totaling over 260 CCA rates currently available in our database. Community choice rate tariffs are reviewed on a monthly basis for updates, and they also get updated every time their associated IOU has new effective charges. This allows our customers to have the most up-to-date information in our database and saves a lot of time. As you can see on the list, we don't currently have SDG&E CCA or maybe another CCA in another state, and that's because Energy Toolbase is a user-driven platform. Therefore, we add and maintain rates based on what has been requested by our customers. Should you notice the CCA you are looking for is not populating, or there are no rates available under that CCA you have selected, this is when a request will be needed. To send a request, all you need to do is email your account manager or the data team directly. You will get an email confirmation same day, and the request will be completed within 2 business days per request. Rate requests and bills can be confusing, so in order to process this request in a timely manner, we ask the following be provided. It's really important that we have the utility or CCA name you're looking for, the state in which it's located. Some utility names can be the same but vary in state. So it's very important that we know exactly what we're looking for and exactly the rate schedules you're needing. And 12 months worth of bills, complete bills actually, where the distribution and generation charges are listed are going to be what's able to confirm the rate schedule that you're looking for. So standard billings for CCA customers do already include the distribution and generation charges on one bill provided by the main utility. So the only difference they will see as a CCA customer is that the generation may be listed separately on the bill under the CCA portion, and there will be a few new additional charges from the utility, which again I will go over when we look at the rate examples. But please keep in mind, some customers can receive their distribution and generation charges on separate billings. So for these customers, the data on each bill must match. That includes the bill date range, account number, meter number, etc. But this is definitely something you shouldn't have to worry about with CCA customers, just important to keep an eye on. So once you've determined your customer is with a CCA, you can search to find the CCA in Energy Toolbase one of 2 ways. The best way, or I guess the easiest way I should say, would be to view all rate schedules, searching the name of the CCA, or if you already have a proposal going, you can go in and edit in your energy use profile in step 3. Because we do input CCAs into Energy Toolbase as if they were their own utility, and the rates are activated globally, I do want to clarify that there are strong reasons we allow this for CCA programs and not other programs like third party or California direct access customers. So next slide, Tracy. As you can see on this slide, generation coming from a CCA customer is the default supply, meaning they automatically will receive the supply if they are in a CCA established area and would have to opt out of receiving the supply before they could switch back to the main utility or another source. Also, CCA rates are not contracted per customer and have set rate schedules that are published and easily accessible. So to summarize, we are able to ensure the consistency and accuracy with CCA rates, allowing us to add them into our database globally. If third-party suppliers had this information readily available, we could treat them similarly. Lastly, with our IOUs containing over 600 available rate schedules and growing, having CCAs listed separately versus adding them into the main utility prevents a lot of the overloading of the utilities and helps avoid any further confusion. So let's go look at an example of a CCA rate in Energy Toolbase. I'm going to show my screen here. So this is where we'll go to view all rate schedules. And we're going to filter out for our first rate that we will look at is going to be for a residential customer with PG&E, and they are going to be with Sonoma Clean Power. And first thing you want to make sure that when you're looking at rates in ETB is that the most effective date is showing. So when you have the most effective date populated, you will see the rate schedules, and you may see the rate schedules appear multiple times with the same effective date. And just to keep in mind that that is due to the various attributes we maintain for these rates. And in this case, with the Resi rate or the PG&E equivalent, the E1, there is a baseline quantity amount that sets a tier within the rate. So that is why you'll see the different attributes for these rates. And we're going to look at the RES1, and we'll go ahead and look at the X basic. We'll jump right to the Energy tab. You can see here the tiered baseline quantity amounts have been applied. And anytime you notice with the CCAs, their charges are always going to be listed first, and we'll always clearly have them labeled. So you can see here the Sonoma Clean Power generation charge, and then following under that, we have the PG&E charges separated out. PG&E does bill bundled, and then they subtract or credit the generation to the customer on the bill. So that's why we have it set up this way in ETB to resemble customer bills. And PG&E does have two charges associated with CCA customers that are additional. There is the franchise fee, which you can see here is quite a small amount, but this amount is collected and given to local governments. And then you have the power charge and difference adjustment, which is also known as an exit fee or PCIA. And this charge is significantly larger, and PG&E's charge currently is a little over 3 cents. So this is one of the charges I know a lot of CCA customers look out for when they're looking at their bills and the different additional charges they may have. These exit fees are designed to kind of be, to add, to ensure any overage of cost occurring due to customers transitioning, that it won't impact the full service customers at the utility. So those are the charges to keep in mind for PG&E. And we will now go look at a commercial customer with SCE. Also something to keep in mind, you may have saw that there was a vintage year applied to the charges, and you'll also see that here going into the Rancho Mirage CCA. We're going to look at a commercial rate here, the TOU GSD, and again we have an attribute for single phase, 3-phase, so we're going to look at the 3-phase right now. So same as the PG&E rates, you'll see here for these additional charges, we have a year listed. That year is a vintage year. So that's the year the customer establishes generation with the CCA, and that year will stay with the customer. The charges can update, but that year will always remain the same. This is a vintage year. I want to say they have it. You should be able to see it on your bill is really what I'm getting at. So it should be clear, but ETB does apply the most current year as an estimate. So again, as you'll see here, we list the Rancho Mirage Energy Adjustment as the first charge, and then we have SCE's charges below. SCE doesn't bundle and give a generation credit, so we strictly just apply the delivery total. And the DWRBC is already included in that portion, so that's not really considered the additional charge we list underneath. But there is a generation municipal surcharge. It's a 0.009095 charge that gets multiplied to the removed generation, and that's where you can see these calculations we have in ETB. It's a small surcharge, but it does apply to the customers who are CCA generations, and it's also known as a franchise fee factor. And as you saw before in the PG&E, there's also a PCIA for SCE, and again, these have the vintage years depending on your customer. And SCE's is a little less, it's at 2.5 cents, but it's still a significant charge to pay attention to. And then they also have the CTC charge, which is an ongoing competition transition charge, and this recovers the above market cost of utility generation. One thing to note too is that the generation municipal surcharge can also apply to the demand remove generation portion, so keep in mind that that surcharge does extend out into the demand portion of the billing, but again, it's very small, so it shouldn't impact it that great. But as you can see, Energy Toolbase does a really good job with making sure that the information we include in our database is accurate and that all the charges and factors associated with the rate are transparent to you as a user. The data team really takes a lot of time updating and ensuring these CCA rates are ready for your use on a monthly basis, and we are always here to help. And so if you have any further questions, please feel free to bring them up in the Q&A section of the webinar, or you can always reach out directly via my email, jory.rotman@energytoolbase.com. And now that you guys have seen how we at ETB handle CCA rates, Scott, our VP of Sales, he's going to be going over the ETB proposal tool and the different NEM rules for the various CCAs.
Thank you, Jory. Woody, thank you for the phenomenal detailed overview on how CCAs are formed, governed, operate, and function. Jory, that was an excellent review, how CCAs differ, how they complement the IOUs in California, and what are the key components of rates, such as generation charge, the PCIA fee, and how we handle that in ETB. I would like to thank everyone for joining us on today's webinar. We understand you have busy schedules, and we appreciate your time. To the current ETB users, I just want to let you know how much we appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and we appreciate your business. Thank you. For those of you not ETB users, hopefully after this webinar or in the future, you'll give us an opportunity to earn your business. My name is Scott D'Ambrosio. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Integrations. For those of you not familiar with Energy Toolbase, we're a third-party, cloud-based proposal platform that truly specializes in utility rate analysis, financial analysis, and avoided cost analysis. Our platform is transparent, objective, and accurate. My portion of the webinar is going to be short and sweet, and I'm going to review the overview of net metering rules within the CCAs and how to model that in our system. All right, let's start off by providing a high-level overview of different NEM program variables that can change from each CCA. We started tracking the different NEM rules that are in operational CCAs and that have already launched. Here are the main NEM programs and variables to keep in mind. All right, so on this slide here, there's 5 different categories. I'm going to work left to right. IOU, so that is just noting where they're receiving from transmission and delivery. The CCA name, that's actually a hyperlink, which will give you more details about the CCA and the programs they offer. Net metering credits, this is the value of exported energy. You'll notice they're all at least full retail, and some of them give you an extra penny on top of full retail. To the right of that, you'll see net surplus compensation rate. Another way of saying this is the wholesale energy rate, and this is what is paid out if you're a net surplus generator at the end of the true-up period. And to the right of that is noting what true-up month. So when are these truing up? We try to summarize these rules. And provide links to the net metering tariffs of the CCAs, official terms and conditional language. We'll upload this into the Help Center after this webinar. All right, for the next portion of this webinar, we're going to talk about how to actually model this in ETB. What you're looking at here is our dashboard, which is the main landing page of our application. Just for time's sake, I'm going to hop into a pre-existing lead. So we're going to move into this lead right here. Just so you know, a lead is basic information that I'm highlighting. It is, company name, contact information. To the right, I'm going to move to facilities, and facilities represent meters here to us at Energy Toolbase. And under each facility, we have this button that says Add Energy Use Profile, and this is our wording to recreate your client's energy bill. So as you open that up here, we provide multiple different options to recreate your client's energy bill. So I'm hovering over spreadsheet interval data. So we accept interval data in multiple forms: single column, multi-column. We accept XML, CSV, and then we also have a API with utility API. These are 3 different forms how to import interval data for your client. For today's purposes, I am going to walk through monthly electric bills, and this is representing transferring what's information on the bill into Energy Toolbase. All right, so the first thing in here, we're going to start off with a profile name. So I'm just going to call this monthly data. Underneath here, you're going to see a drop down of the utilities and CCAs. Now, Jory did a great job on talking how you can roam our database through the back end. This is another way to roam our database, and what this does is isolate the CCAs and utilities per state. So this is noting the address of the facility and is only going to show you those utilities and CCAs in that state. Just another way to roam our data. So let's go ahead and just continue that flow of Rancho Mirage. We're going to choose that. Next is bill start date. So this is when the billing starting 12 months from this date is when the true up period would happen. Underneath here, let's go to metering. Now, as you open this up here, you're going to see the option of full retail net metering. You're going to see retail with non-bypassable charges, and you're going to see no net metering. Now, it's important to mention IOUs still handle the distribution component of net metering. Just like on rates, CCAs have jurisdiction over the net metering rules of the generation only. So IOUs still include minimum bill and other state mandated charges like MVCs, which still apply. So I'm going to set this to full retail with non-bypassable charges. The true up period is going to be annual. You'll notice here where you could set the wholesale energy rate. So this is the net surplus compensation rate. And you would just set this for whatever they're paying out. So Clean San Francisco almost has 3 times the wholesale energy rate of PG&E, which is super interesting. Underneath here, you'll see non-bypassable charges. Now we default conservative to 2.5 cents. Now, one thing while we got everybody on the line here, just want to show everybody a little cheat here. I'm going to duplicate this tab. I'm going to hop into our Help Center, and I'm going to search the word MVC. So if you search this word here, we try to do this quarterly. Per rate schedule will actually identify what is the actual MVCs associated with that rate. And this is found in our Help Center. All right, I'm going to use rate schedule D for simplicity. So that was noted as 1.9. Well, you'll notice there isn't an option for +1 of exports. This is a functionality we're currently not handling dynamically from the screen. We handle the extra penny through a custom transaction that we drop in by request to make sure the economics are correct. As the industry evolves, so does the evolution of our software. And this is a perfect time to announce for the first time publicly our new release of the platform that will be rolling out later this year. This release has been in construction for a while. It has abundance of new features and capabilities. A large part of the refactor is increased functionality around our utility rate engine. Everything we're discussing today will be included in the update and will be dynamically calculated in the new release, as well as numerous other functionalities and features that our user base has been requesting. Now, before we get the question, just going to put it out there, we are not releasing an official launch date until we get a little closer. We need a little more beta testing, which we just started. So stay posted as the time approaches. We'll inform the user base. We'll provide videos, webinars, and trainings on the new platform. All right, let's keep moving here. So to the right here, you're going to see the drop down of the rates from the utility or the CCA offered. For simplicity, I'm just going to stick with rate schedule D here. Underneath here, you're going to see effective date. One thing that makes Energy Toolbase unique compared to other softwares is we own our utility database. Jory and her team works extremely hard to make sure the 47,000 rates we maintain are detailed, accurate, and up to date. Effective date is a way to communicate to our user base the last time this tariff has changed. We'll always default to the most recent effective date. One thing I think Energy Toolbase does a fantastic job on is being transparent with our user base. We're not in front of the clients, you are. So if you hit this rate schedule hyperlink here, this is going to break down this rate for you. We're going to give you a summary of the rate. We're going to break down the seasons and time periods. We're going to break down the fixed charges. We're going to break down the energy charges. And you could see here what Jory was noting. You'll see the CCA charges and you'll see the major IOU charges underneath there. And to the right here, you're going to see this is a residential rate schedule, but if there was demand or any special programming like peak day pricing or critical peak pricing will be noted here. All right, so let me just enter some usage in here. Just going to use a blanket of 1,000 kilowatt hours on the year, on the month, 12,000 on the year. And once you enter that usage, and the idea is to transfer what's on the bill into Energy Toolbase right into this matrix here, you'll see we'll start populating charges on a monthly as well as an annual basis. A huge benefit of the CCAs we keep discussing is full retail exported energy, which is really full retail minus MVCs, which is a huge factor on that, on the economics. Well, it's necessary to understand how your client is importing energy, as that will affect how they're exporting energy. We understand you always can't get actual interval data for the client for numerous reasons. This is why we created this feature called the ETB Load Profiler, which is noted right here to the left that I'm highlighting. We'll always let you know it's more accurate to get actual interval data, but in absence of interval data, in our mind, this is the next best thing. This is where we take your monthly inputs in this matrix, and we can morph data to a representative interval data set. This will increase the accuracy of your analysis as well as empower you to add storage in this analysis. All right, so what we do, we take your actual inputs here. You'll see we have 3 different options: residential, non-residential, and reference my own energy profile. When you see DOE here, this is Department of Energy. They collect interval data sets based on geographic locations. So when I choose residentially here, this is based on the geographic location of this address. This is how a typical client, typical residential client uses energy. I'm showing you seasonal load profiles. We do this for all 365 days, but this is just a high-level overview how this client uses energy. Non-residential is 16 different commercial data sets that you can use, but what happens when you can't find the data set that fits your client? We have this third option where it says reference my own interval data set. This is where you're actually building your own library. Every time you bring in interval data set, you can use that as a reference load profile. Now, how somebody uses energy is going to completely change depending on the client. So if we had a church, let's look at seasonal load profiles here, during the week, right, we're not seeing much energy. If we had a solar system kick in here, this would be exported energy for the most part. What happens on the weekends? We have a spike when the congregation comes in. This is how a church uses energy. Well, this is completely different than, let's say, a cold storage facility, which is going to have longer shoulders, right? Or maybe an office building, right, which is going to have more of that 9 to 5 usage in here. Weekends, not a lot of usage. During the weekdays, right, when everybody's coming in, you'll see that usage during the day. Long story short, your client is unique, and understanding how your client imports energy is an important factor in calculating avoided costs and an important input to set correctly. So there's no rule of thumb to say, hey, your client's always better off on a CCA or they're always better off on an IOU. It depends on the customer's goal, the size of the systems that you're including, the rate schedules that you're comparing, the metering rules, and how the client uses energy. We work in an industry that's constantly changing. The evolution of rate design and utility billing, metering configurations is a continuous event. California is a pioneer in developing policies and procedures in the renewable energy markets that gets adopted by other states. Accurate analysis starts at recreating your client's energy bill accurately. Energy Toolbase is consistently increasing our functionalities to keep strides with the changing environments while providing detailed, transparent, accurate, and defensible analysis. We hope you found today's webinar informative. If you're not an Energy Toolbase user, please sign up for a free trial or join us of a demo by going to energytoolbase.com. We would love to work with you and your company and an opportunity to earn your business. I'm going to pass it back to Tracy for a little Q&A.
All right, thank you, Scott, Woody, and Jory. We do have quite a few questions coming in, and as I'm reading them, I'm kind of seeing that we have answered some of them, but let's try and get to the others. The first one I'm going to ask is for Woody, and it is, what advantages do CCAs have over large IOUs?
Well, I mean, it depends on advantages for whom, I guess, would be sort of something you could parse that out to. But in terms of, sort of for a community, what are the advantages for, why a community, a city or a county would want to do this, is that, these are not-for-profit agencies that are, meant to serve the local public needs. So the net revenues can be reinvested in innovative programs that serve the needs of the local community. So I think that's a key thing for project developers. There's this new player in the field that is interested in, projects that are sometimes not the typical conventional utility scale project necessarily, maybe a smaller, mid-scale project, somewhere in the built environment in a city or a county, that a community choice agency might be interested in that a large utility might not. So there's opportunities that community choice agencies afford that have sort of been a gap really in where the interest is for project development.
All right, thank you, Scott. Since you were just talking, this one is in the new ETB software update you mentioned that's coming shortly. Will it be possible for me to model a project where I rate switch from a current IOU rate to a new CCA rate? Currently, they can't switch rates across utilities.
That is true. Thank you, Tracy. It's a great question. That is absolutely included in the increased functionality of the new update.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Tracy, just want to make a note. If somebody needs to do that today, we can absolutely do that today. Just contact your account manager. There's just 1 or 2 extra keystrokes to make that happen.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, Scott. Jory, I'm going to give this one to you. It is, this customer is based in the SDG&E territory, and it sounds like CCAs will officially launch down there shortly. After they're up and running, how long is it going to take for Energy Toolbase to enter those CCA rates into Energy Toolbase?
Yeah, so all the customer has to do is, if they're noticing a CCA that's established and they want it inputted, they would just shoot their account manager or the data team an email, and we would be happy to get that in within a couple business days and get that up and running for them.
Okay, thank you. Woody, this one is probably a good one for you. How would a customer know if they're included in a CCA program?
Well, by law, there's a requirement that notices go out, once a city or county has voted to establish one, when they're approaching that launch point, there's a period 2 months before, 2 months after, where legally required notices go out in the mail and in bill inserts that the program is coming, and the folks have an opportunity to opt out at no cost. After that period of time, they can still opt out at any time, although there may be a small one-time administrative fee to opt out. But typically, the community choice, the cities and counties will do what they can to let folks know that the program is coming. I mean, it will have necessarily gone through a typical city or county process of hearings and votes and passing of an ordinance and all that. So it's a public process. So for folks to pay attention, granted, a lot of folks don't pay attention to that civic and municipal process. So we found that a lot of people are not aware. However, cities and counties do go out and do community meetings, farmers markets, all that kind of stuff, and do their best to alert the community that this is a new choice really coming their way. And so there's that legal mandatory requirement, and so then that's, those are typically the ways that the word gets out. And I should say, they don't get a new bill. It's the billing remains the purview of the IOU, the incumbent utility, and the Community Choice Agency simply replaces that generation line on the bill. So people would actually have to be scrutinizing their bill to see that Community Choice Agency is now that line in their bill, and that's probably a rare thing that people do that. So yeah, again, it's not something that people are always fully aware of.
Okay, great. Thank you, Woody. That was a lot of information, and we would answer all the questions, but we just don't have time today. But we will try to respond to you guys via email with all the questions you have. But I do want to say thank you to everyone again for joining us today. Like I mentioned, don't worry, this is going to be recorded, and we're going to send it out shortly after we wrap up today's webinar. Again, thank you, Woody, for joining us today along with Scott and Jory. And if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to contact your account manager, any one of us, or you can sign up for a free trial on energytoolbase.com to kind of see more of what we're about. But again, we appreciate you all being on, and have a great day to all of you.
Thank you.